Hello, everybody. Frank Kenny here. I'm with Brad Hicks of the, what chamber are you with, Brad, there?
The Chamber of Medford, Jackson County.
And actually, I was in the audience a couple of years ago. We're at the W.A.C.E conference, I should say, here. A couple of years ago, you were named Chamber Exec of the Year for the entire 17-state region. So anyway, I'm really happy to have you on camera here. We're going to have...
do it alphabetically.
Yeah, it was your time. It was your due.
Yeah.
You've been in the industry a long time. How long?
This September will be my 20th year.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So I'm going to have you on the show to talk about government affairs for chambers, which a lot of chambers are shy of it, but you're not. What's your philosophy on chambers tackling government affairs?
Well, two things probably inspired that in me. One makes less sense than the other. One is I grew up in a family that was in business for itself. My parents were grocers. And they went broke. They went bankrupt in the recession of the early 80s. And I remember when I first got to know a little bit more about what chambers did through another thing that contributed to our political activity. I thought, gosh, if a good chamber had existed that was engaged in political advocacy, maybe my folks would have made it through that rough time. Fast forward, I go through school, become a political science major. I was on my way to law school. And I got hung up in the legislative process and wound up running a House office and 2 Senate offices, and then worked for a member of Congress as a staff person, and thought, holy smokes, these guys don't hate business, they just don't get it. So I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this bubble. I'm going to go back home. And even though I didn't say I'm going to go back home and run the chamber, I did go back home and bumped into my predecessor who said, you got to come work for the chamber. So, 19 plus years ago, he took a chance on me, I took a chance on him, and slowly but surely, I guess you could say, I started putting on our chamber and our business community on this slow drip of information that said, you cannot be like my parents. You can't just get up and be a good grocer every day and expect it's going to work well. You got to have one eye on the store, and you got to have one eye on City Hall and the county courthouse and the legislative process, or it's going to get you. And I've become fond of the old saying, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu.
Right.
And that could not be more true as it relates to business and governmental affairs.
Yeah. So even though it's a little bit risky for your chamber, you might take some slings and arrows, you've made the decision that, look, we're going to be the voice of business, whether you like it or not, and it works.
We get kicked in the chops pretty regularly from members and non-members alike, from electeds. Of course, you expect that when you don't endorse them or you don't support their bill or their ordinance. But just the same, we're not in this to be popular. We're in it to do things that advance free enterprise and help our members be successful. In fact, our purpose statement is helping business succeed. So if you think about any chamber's role at any given time in history, and that changes. I mean, sometimes, and one of the reasons why chambers have become these repositories of things they can't seem to get rid of, it's not because they never had value for a business community, right? At one point, mixers meant a lot to people's business communities, but they don't necessarily mean as much today as they did once, and we just don't flush them. We don't let go of them.
Right.
So if it's our role to look at what businesses need at any given moment in time and say, let's go do that to help businesses succeed, my point is, for the last decade or better, it's been political advocacy, and that's really, in a lot of ways, that's a renaissance for chambers, because it really was what chambers were doing for their members at chambers' origins. So when you think back, and this sounds funny to say, but if you read Chris Mead's book, from Chris Mead from ACCE, it was the chamber that was very, very quietly leading things like the Boston Tea Party.
Right.
So, there's a lot of, I'm sure, a little political discourse that took place at the Chamber of Commerce before they actually finally went out and did something that extreme. We've never done anything that extreme. However, we've done things very important, and it's resulted in freeway interchanges and transportation investments and higher education buildings that are all real manifestations of our chamber's political activity. I don't like to call it lobbying. I like to call it advocacy.
Right.
Lobbying has a dirty association.
Right.
But when the chamber goes to City Hall and says, you know what, we think we can fill up our community's hotel rooms if we had a 124-acre sports park, you can call that lobbying, you can call it advocacy or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's resulted in jobs and tourism and all these good things for our community. And that's just one example.
Tangible deliverables rather than feel-good things.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time here. And a couple of weeks, we'll have you on the Chamber Focus Show for a good hour, and we'll really hash this out.
Yeah.
All right, Brad, thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye-bye.